Every year, WWE brings its larger-than-life action and superstars to millions of fans worldwide, establishing itself as a global phenomenon that transcends cultural boundaries. From electrifying events in iconic arenas to heartfelt initiatives that give back to communities, WWE has always been more than just entertainment. For a special group of fans, the brave men and women of the United States Armed Forces, WWE has gone above and beyond to show their appreciation, creating an unparalleled tradition of gratitude. This is the story of WWE's Tribute to the Troops, a groundbreaking and heartfelt tradition that celebrated the heroes in uniform. The idea for Tribute to the Troops was born from the desire to give back and show appreciation. In the early 2000s, then WWE Chairman Vince McMahon and wrestler John Bradshaw Layfield were deeply moved by the sacrifices of the military and first responders. That became more so after the terrorist attacks on September 11, 2001. After he had gone to Ground Zero in 2001, to Afghanistan in 2002, and to Iraq in 2003, Bradshaw ended up talking with the active Sergeant Major of the Army, Jack Tilley, who asked JBL if WWE was overseas wrestling. After he said they weren't, the Sergeant Major replied with, quote, "Oh, that'd be great if you were." From there, the idea started forming in Bradshaw's mind.
I started putting the idea together of the old Bob Hope USO tour. And if you remember, I mean, Bob Hope did some incredible stuff in war zones. Robin Williams did incredible stuff in war zones. And I started putting the idea together of doing something like this with WWE. So the next base I got to, I emailed Vince and I said, "Hey, would you like to do something like a Bob Hope USO tour, but do it in the modern day and do it with WWE?" And he said, he sent me a note back right away. He said, "John, that's fantastic." He said, "I love it. Write it up for me and let's do it."
After talks between WWE and the Armed Forces Entertainment Group, the event was ultimately approved with a number of conditions. One such condition is that WWE could only bring 33 people on the tour. It was 15 wrestlers and 19 technicians for that first show. McMahon handpicked the talent that would appear at the show, with some being nervous about their safety on the trip. After all, it was the first ever WWE show to happen in an active war zone. But in December 2003, the vision became reality. WWE held its first Tribute to the Troops event in Baghdad, Iraq, airing it as a special edition of SmackDown called Christmas from Baghdad. During the trip, McMahon personally ensured the operation was a success, overseeing logistical decisions himself, as well as having the safety of the WWE staff at the front of his mind. JBL later described the experience as the, quote, "most incredible thing he's ever done." And while it could have been looked at simply as a PR move from WWE's side, it was a genuine commitment to uplifting the spirits of those serving in war zones. WWE wanted to bring a piece of home to those who needed it most, a sentiment McMahon reiterated during the event, stating that, quote, "even though you men and women here in Iraq cannot be back at home with your loved ones and your family, we decided in the WWE to bring a slice of Americana to you here today." The logistics of pulling off these events were staggering. WWE superstars, crew, and production staff traveled to active war zones under heavy security, often facing unique challenges such as navigating terrain marked by ongoing conflict and adapting to unpredictable conditions. Performers flew on military transport planes, landing at bases under strict lockdown to ensure their safety, and they would perform in open-air venues, often under the looming threat of mortar fire, just to bring smiles to the faces of service members. To pull these shows off required extensive planning and close coordination with the military, from securing safe travel routes and vetting venues for threats to arranging briefings for the staff. Every detail was meticulously managed. WWE had to adapt their setups to potentially harsh conditions and ensure that their performers respected any sort of sensitivities of the regions they visited. And overseas editions of these shows brought unique challenges and humbling experiences for many. In Iraq and Afghanistan, the crew had to contend with limited resources, relying on military equipment to build the stage and light the ring. Security briefings became part of the routine, with superstars recalling the tension of performing so close to danger. Despite these risks, however, many of the performers described the trips as some of the most meaningful experiences of their careers. And the Tribute to the Troops events weren't just about wrestling. WWE superstars would spend days on bases meeting members of the military and even participating in military drills. It was a full-circle effort to connect with those on the front lines. Now let's take a journey through the early history of Tribute to the Troops, year by year, and look at some of the moments that define these events. The inaugural show took place at Camp Victory Baghdad in 2003, with the main event seeing John Cena face off against The Big Show before Stone Cold would come down, stun both men, and then invite everyone to the ring for a celebration and final thank you to those fighting for the country. As mentioned before, WWE's production crew faced significant logistical hurdles, including securing military approval for equipment transport and setting up in the harsh desert environment. The camaraderie shown, however, between the superstars and service members set the tone for what would happen in future shows. In 2004, the show moved to Camp Spiker in Tikrit, Iraq, with another special edition of SmackDown called Christmas in Iraq. This show was headlined by Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio, taking on Kurt Angle and Roman Reigns' long-lost cousin, Luther. In 2005, we saw the first Tribute to the Troops show taking place from Afghanistan. Taped on December 9th, the show aired as a special edition of Monday Night Raw on December 19th, with Shawn Michaels and Triple H in a boot camp match. It was also the longest show up to that point, with 7 matches on the card, and it was the first of 3 straight to air as episodes of Raw instead of SmackDown. Back at Camp Victory in Iraq, this event saw Michael Cole doing regular news reports during the lead up to the show. One such report showed the aftermath of mortar attacks around Camp Victory, where 3 mortars landed roughly a block away from where the makeshift arena for the show was being built. While there were injuries from the attack, none of them were from WWE.
As we emerged from the cover, jet black smoke billowed not more than 200 yards behind us, and it was then we realized the true impact of what had happened as word trickled in that 5 people were seriously injured in the attack. Troops began to rip their very own armor off their bodies and gave it to us. Another selfless act, as they were more concerned with the safety of the WWE crew than their own well-being in case of subsequent attacks.
In 2008 and 2009, the shows aired as specials on NBC, marking the first time they would be standalone events. With these moves to special event shorter shows, the 2008 show featured just 2 matches, while 2009 had 3. But as 2009 came and went, it would become the end of an era for the annual event. Before going any further, there is something that can't just be glossed over here. While the early and later years of the event did have their feel-good moments, one extremely disturbing incident puts a black cloud over a lot that happened. In 2006, while on tour with WWE in the Middle East, Ashley Massaro was allegedly injected with a paralyzing drug and raped by a man posing as a U.S. Army doctor. According to Massaro, a woman then guarded the door while the incident took place. WWE was informed about the incident, but she was asked by McMahon and former head of talent relations John Laurinaitis to keep the incident private to preserve the WWE's relationship with the military. Tragically, Massaro took her own life in 2019 before any of this came to public light. After it did become public, WWE denied ever being informed of the assault taking place. In its statement, WWE said if she ever articulated such a claim to WWE, we would have reported it immediately to the base commander. At no time was there ever a meeting with Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinaitis, or any other company executives in which she told them of such a claim, and was instructed to keep it quiet. In February 2024, however, a lawyer for Laurinaitis said that, quote, most upper-level management at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. With their original statement contradicted, WWE and its parent company TKO refused to comment any further. It was then reported by Vice News that NCIS investigated the allegations from June 2019 to January of 2020. The investigation resulted in nothing, quote, indicative of the allegations of sexual assault provided being found, and with Massaro sadly passing away, the case was ultimately closed. Starting in 2010, WWE made the decision to produce the show stateside for the first time. Tribute to the Troops would move from overseas events in combat zones to performances at military bases and arenas across the country. This shift reflected not only logistical realities, but also WWE's evolving approach to the event. Stateside editions allowed for grander production values and live audience integration, but they marked a departure from the raw emotional resonance of performing directly for the troops who were stationed in dangerous environments. The move stateside was also influenced by changes in global military engagements. As troop deployments in active combat zones decreased, the need for morale-boosting events in those regions somewhat diminished. WWE adapted to these shifts, choosing to bring the tributes closer to home. The first show in the United States took place at Fort Hood in Texas. There were numerous celebrity guests and 2 airings of the show, a 1-hour NBC special and a 2-hour USA Network version. The NBC special would air just 2 of the 5 matches that were filmed for the event. Throughout the next decade, the show would be held at regular arenas like the Norfolk Scope and Columbus Civic Center, among other places. 2019's show at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina was the first and only at this point to be held, but not taped for any sort of television. Fast forward to 2023 and the final Tribute to the Troops would air, and like the originals, it was treated as a special edition of SmackDown. It was the first and only edition of the show to air live and featured 4 matches, including a main event of Randy Orton and LA Knight against Bloodline members Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. As 2024 came and went on, talks of the year's event just never happened. Late in the year, it was reported that WWE wasn't holding a Tribute to the Troops show for the first time in 20 years. These reports first began circulating in early December that the show just wasn't going to happen, and by later that month, the news was confirmed. Fightful then reported that WWE currently has no plans to continue the shows at this point, but that there's always the potential to bring it back. The Tribute to the Troops shows left an indelible mark on WWE and its fans. It demonstrated the power of sports entertainment to unite and uplift, even in the most challenging circumstances. Service members often recalled these events as bright spots during their tours of duty, offering moments of laughter, joy, and connection. It also gave them the opportunity to show what they do and where they live to many who wouldn't normally have the chance to experience some of what the service members deal with. Said General Mark Hertling in 2007, quote, "What we do when we get these great stars who are supporting us so well, we send them out to every FOB and every patrol base. There are not a lot of people who understand what we do over here, and the superstars come over here and see it. They volunteer to do it. We appreciate it, and it makes us feel good to have these guys spend some time with us." And though the annual tradition has ended for now, Tribute to the Troops' legacy endures as a shining example of gratitude, resilience, and the enduring bond between WWE and the armed forces. It wasn't just about the matches or the spectacle. It was about bridging worlds and showing appreciation where it mattered most, with a tribute like no other. Thanks for watching.